integrity, who don't flip-flop, change their positions in order to suit the mood of the people that they're trying to win over. And so in order to restore social harmony, it's important to find real people of real integrity who are willing to speak the truth and to hold to the truth, even when it means going against powerful vested interests, when it means going against popular opinion. Okay, so one reason for the stricture against lying is that it's necessary to preserve mutual trust between people, and in this way to protect social harmony. Another reason, on a more personal level, is that lies tend to proliferate. Like if one tells one lie, then sometimes one could get away with it, but if somebody suspects one of having told a lie and then challenges one, then in order to defend yourself and protect yourself, you have to tell another lie. And then in order to keep the story coherent, to keep that lie intact, then you have to tell still another lie, and then another lie, and another lie, until you become just completely enclosed in a web of lies. In my own personal experience, there was one incident that took place in my childhood that always remains quite clear in my memory. On a shop in 13th Avenue in Brooklyn, no, it was 12th Avenue, not so far from my family home. In the shop window there was a set with a pen and a pencil, pen and pencil set. And each time I would pass it, I would look at the pen and pencil set, and oh, it was just so enticing. I don't remember how old I was, maybe about 8 years old. Barely knew how to write, but seeing a pen and pencil set with these bright colors, it was a kind of paisley pattern of colors, and it was so attractive. And then I noticed that my mother, she left her pocketbook on the counter in the kitchen. And I saw the price tag for the pen and pencil set. And one day I couldn't resist, when my mother was out or in another room, I couldn't resist opening the pocketbook and seeing that there was enough money to buy the pen and pencil set. And so at that time I wasn't an ordained Buddhist monk with the precept not to steal. But I was just a little boy, easily tempted. And so, looking around, Mom's in the other room, out comes the $5 bill, or could it be $2, I don't remember, into the pocket. And then later that day, I'm off to the corner shop to buy the pen and pencil set and bring it back. But then, my parents saw the pen and pencil set and asked me, where did you get the money to buy the pen and pencil set? I think I might have told them, I don't remember the exact reason, but hypothetically I might have said, Grandma gave me the money. Which was a bit foolish because Grandma was living just upstairs. So I think it could have been that evening when Mom and Dad sitting with a rather stern expression on their face, just like the Buddha calling Rahula, called me in and said, Jeffrey, sit down, we want to speak to you. you said you got the money to buy that pen and pencil set from Grandma, but we asked Grandma and she said she didn't give you any money. So where do you get the money from? So then shamefully I had to tell them the truth. And then they told me something that really stuck in my mind throughout my whole life. They said, stealing is bad, it's something you shouldn't do, but what you did after that is even worse. What you did was to tell a lie in order to cover up your bad act. And so then they stressed to me the importance of telling the truth. So I've always remembered that. So, unfortunately, in my teenage years, I would steal little things from shops. But I probably told lies also. But it remained clearly in my mind that I should not tell a lie in order to cover up other bad acts. Okay, so the second reason for abstaining from lying is that lies come to proliferate until we find ourselves, locked in a cage of lies. The third reason is that over time we come to believe our own lies. And so we lose a sense of what's real and what's imaginary. That division between the two breaks down. And so I think this is the case of what happens with habitual liars. Somebody who tells lies, boastfully in order to boost his own status, stories about his adventures in India and Africa, South America, when he never left Brooklyn. But after a while he comes to believe these, and so he maybe has like a swollen sense of ego, of self-importance, because he's been telling a lot of lies in order to boost his standing in the eyes of others. And so he gets swollen up and completely deceived, deceiving himself by his own falsehoods. And often we could almost develop a certain sensitivity towards people like that. So when we come across people who are habitual liars, maybe not immediately, but after a little while we can tell that they're liars. And then we develop a distrust towards them. Okay, then there's another reason that I think the Buddha emphasizes puts so much emphasis on truthful speech. And this is because what I see is a certain parallelism or correspondence between truthful speech and wisdom. Like the function of wisdom, according to the Buddha's teaching, is to see and know things as they really are. And the function of truthful speech is to communicate the way things really are. So if we are going to develop wisdom, the insight into the nature of things as they really are, then we have to build up a kind of subjective foundation for that by, in our speech, describing things as they really are. So we could say that wisdom and truthful speech are, respectively, the inner and outer manifestations of a commitment to reality. And when we make this commitment to truthful speech, this establishes a correspondence between our own inner being and the nature of reality or actuality. And so by establishing that correspondence, then truthful speech contributes to the growth and development of wisdom. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why I would say that Buddhism places so much emphasis on truthful speech. But now a certain problem comes up. Some of the questions or comments earlier were pointing in this direction. And that is, a question comes up, are there ever occasions when speaking falsehood is permissible or even necessary? And this is an interesting problem, because this is my complaint against the suttas, that one doesn't find in the suttas, at least to my knowledge, examples brought up or cases brought up where there is a conflict of moral obligations, where there are two sort of moral obligations which on certain occasions are not compatible. To give an example of this, different from that of truthful speech, say a farmer has taken the 5 precepts not to take life, and yet in order to plow his field, inevitably he's going to be harming, injuring living beings, the beings that live in the ground. So when we think that a farmer who's taken the 5 precepts might have some inner struggle, how can I plow my field in order to grow food, to provide for my family, and to earn a living, and yet uphold the precept to avoid taking life, even though he's not sort of deliberately singling out creatures to kill, but he knows when he's plowing the field that creatures are going to be killed. And yet we don't see in the suttas examples where the farmer might come to the Buddha and present him with that moral dilemma. And similarly, there are cases where there seems to be a conflict between the obligation to speak the truth and some other moral obligation. To take maybe a very clear case. During the period when the Nazis came to power in Germany and the years of World War II, there were families in some of the country, well, in Germany itself and some of the other countries conquered by the Nazis, in Poland, Czechoslovakia, Holland, which would hide Jewish people, in special rooms that they would build, and attics and basements, and keep them there. And when sometimes, I guess, the Nazi inspectors would come around checking to see if there are any Jews, and they would have to ask the family, have you seen or do you know of the presence of any Jewish people around here? Okay, if the families which are protecting the Jewish people speak the truth, say we have to speak the truth, and say yes, there are some Jewish people in our basement or in the attic, then they know that's the end of them. They'll be gathered, sent off to the concentration camp, and most likely obliterated. And so here there's a conflict of ethical obligations, and it seems almost overwhelmingly certain that the obligation to protect the lives of others has a greater claim on our allegiance in that case than the obligation to speak the truth. Shake your head this way.
Maybe I'm a better liar. I would say, I saw Jews a couple of days ago, I do not see them now. It's absolutely true, deceiving. Yes, I saw them a couple of days ago, but I'm not seeing them as of now. Bhante, from now on, you will not believe me.
What is that?
I'm deceiving them with a good heart, but I am not telling lie at all.
You're going to come and clean up my room after the class?
Yes.
I have to keep an eye on you.
Watch your wallet.
But what if they ask you, is any Jews living in your house, or how are you living with them? How are you going to defend this not to lie?
I didn't lie.
No, how do you say that? So, oh no, they lived with me a couple of days ago, but now they don't live in this house. But they ask you that they are in the basement or in the attic.
I said, now I don't see them.
But we don't say see or not see. How about live with them, or you hiding them, or you keep them?
Yeah, the question could be phrased in a way that wouldn't allow you to...
Right. So what situation allow you to protect you, not really to lie, also have the wisdom way to protect others? That is the key. That's what I feel sometimes. How we solve that in a certain situation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And a lot of things we developed with the reality and the sutras, I found some kind of conflictions there, but...
Some kind of...
Confliction,
yeah.
Should I follow the sutra, or should I do something? How I'm developing this will become the wisdom. I had a problem with that.
Oh.
And will this kind of wisdom be accepted by this reality we live, or by the sutra that time we live? I found that's a hard part.
Yeah, yeah.
And then for me to not to do this so, because I follow the sutra, but for other people in this reality, for that they don't see as the truth.
I think some people have some comments to comment on your comment. Please.
Yes, I hear right now our discussions, we use a microscope to look at the detail, very, very
We use the
detail.
what? The microscope to look at detail, yeah.
Or magnifier to look at the detail. If we stay back, we see the whole situation.
Yeah.
If I say, yeah, I do not see these people.
I do not.
I do not see these people. I say people. I say Jewish. And I prevent these people kill people.
Yeah.
It's a good deed.
It's
a good deed.
Yeah, I see, yeah.
Okay, so I think it's really, I don't think it's violate anything.
Yeah.
Maybe sacrifice myself, but I say more people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, first, then we take Andrea, and then, oh, I see, you have it, okay, so David, you speak.
It's really the intent of the lie that's what's important.
I think that's
not the lie itself.
I think that's extremely important point.
If you ask the doctor, am I going to die, and the doctor wants to protect you for some period of time for some good reason, he said, no, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of a lie.
Yeah, and I think that's where
the end.
Compassion, as Dina brought up before, comes in. I say that there are, even though the texts speak about how lies are motivated by greed, hatred, or delusion, but it seems to me that in some cases there are lies which are motivated by compassion.
Yeah, good reason.
And I don't think somebody can argue that, well, if you say that there are compassionate grounds for lying, then you're encouraging the unrestrained multiplication of falsehood. I don't think that's the case. It's not very convincing to me.
There's also a situation where the person doesn't realize that they're lying,
Yeah, right.
That story about the sky is falling, Chicken Licken running around telling everybody the sky is falling because he's hit on the head by an acorn. He doesn't realize that he's lying and he's creating.
Well, I would say that's not really a lie. That's one is saying something which is not true,
Yeah.
but I say that lying implies intention. If there's no intention to communicate something falsely, it's not a lie. And then, Drea, the different.
I personally feel if one has any sort of moral backbone, one knows what is right and what is wrong. It's rather simple. You protect the person hiding from the Nazis. You protect the runaway slave in the Underground Railroad. Or there are many other sorts of situations. And to go through, well, I'm not really lying, is the worst sort of moral equivocation.
To go through.
To say, well, if I say this,
Yeah.
it's not really a lie. It's the worst form of moral equivocation.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's a form of false scrupulosity,
yeah.
which really, I've been going nuts here, with that. It's sometimes I just think it's just a simple thing. What's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. Not do I have to go look in a book. I mean, if you want to take the Holocaust example, there's a book about. You know about the Book of Life, where people who save Jews are put in Israel, right, the righteous. Some of these people weren't so righteous. There was one family which took this woman in very reluctantly, but they did take her in. They didn't betray her. But the grandmother was worried about this and actually had to go to the priest. Are you sure we're doing right, even though she's a filthy, dirty, rotten yid? And the priest said, yes, you're doing right.
Mm.
So I can't believe they made it into the Book of the Righteous. I mean, just barely. But to have to be told by some authority figure or go to a book, I think personally, I have a real problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I'm in agreement with that. There are instances where one gets a very clear, intuitive moral sense of what is right and what is wrong. I say also that there are some people who have a professional commitment to speak falsehood, and speaking falsehood is necessary to protect large numbers of people. People working in, maybe I'll get some eggs thrown at me, but somebody working in the CIA.
You do be killed.
Excuse me?
You do have to keep it secret. They can be
Yeah,
killed.
exactly, and you have to put out like a false identity.
Undercover officer.
Yeah. I mean, it's not always done with bad intentions. So. Anyway, so I just wanted to bring out that there are cases where it seems that there are other moral obligations sort of trump the obligation to speak the truth. So what I would say is that other things being equal, if there's no other overriding moral obligation, then we're under an obligation to speak the truth.
I just have one question. You said something. You said, this is where I have trouble with the sutra.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't... It's possible to have...
Wait. Take the microphone.
You mentioned that this was a place where this is a point that you had where you had a problem with the sutra, because it doesn't mention these things. But conceivably, you could have problems anywhere along the line with the sutras. And how do you know when to believe it and accept it and when to question it?
I mean, that's a big question that maybe I shouldn't try to go into right now. Because some of the comments now answer the point that you brought up. Yeah.
Yes, kind of similar to what he mentioned about if there is the problem, have the conflict, how are we going to follow? And just like you mentioned, the previous Christians, what did you just say?
I said, how do you decide? I said,
Right.
how do you decide whether to believe and follow or not? Have question.
And then things can go just really have problem to.
I don't want to get into such a big question, but just to keep it focused on the question of where there's a conflict of moral obligations. And here I think one has to have what I would call an intuitive reliance upon one's own intuition about what is right, what is wrong, under the circumstances in which one finds oneself. Like the farmer who has to plow the field in order to grow crops and feed his family. I mean, he'll understand that these are sort of like the limitations placed on him, that he can't abstain from taking life perfectly, 100%, but he does his best. Okay, now I want to go back to the sutta. Okay, then just taking the last the last sentence in paragraph 7, or the next to last sentence, the Buddha says to Rahula, when one is not ashamed to tell a deliberate lie, there is no evil, I say, that one would not do. Again, this seems like a strong statement. And I would suppose that the Buddha is making a statement like that under particular circumstances that we don't fully know, because they're part of the context under which the sutta was given. I don't know whether that could be taken as, just point blank, as a generalization that we should always adhere to. In fact, there's an interesting case in the Angulimala Sutta. This is Sutta number 86 in the Majjhima Nikaya. This is on page 714 in the Middle Length Discourses. Probably many of you know the story of Angulimala. In the earlier part of his life, he had been a terrible, what we would call a serial killer, who would kill many, many people, and whenever he would kill them, he would cut off one of their fingers, dry it up till only the bone remains, and then he put together a necklace of the bones of their fingers. And so he was the most feared serial killer in this part of North India. But the Buddha went into the forest where he was living, transformed him, and then Angulimala became a Buddhist monk. And then he became very well-disciplined, very admirable monk. Eventually he reached arhatship. Okay, now one day, Ambalatthikarahulovada was going on alms round in the town of Savatthi, and then he saw a woman who was giving, she was having a difficult childbirth. And then Ambalatthikarahulovada returned to the Buddha and reported what he saw. And then, this is in paragraph 15, the Buddha says to Ambalatthikarahulovada, he says, in that case, go to Savatthi and say to that woman, Sister, since I was born, I do not recall that I have ever intentionally deprived a living being of life. By this truth, may you be well, and may your infant be well. Then Angulimala says to the Buddha, he says, Bhante, in that case, wouldn't I be telling a deliberate lie? For I have intentionally killed many living beings. But then the Buddha said, see, the Buddha had a different intention in mind when he said that, which wasn't made explicit. And so the way Angulimala understood it, if he were to say that, make that statement, he would be telling a deliberate lie. And so the Buddha then expresses his intention explicitly. He says, then go into Savatthi and say to that woman, Sister, since I was born with a noble birth, I do not recall that I have ever intentionally deprived a living being of life. By this truth, may you be well, and may your infant be well. Then Angulimala goes into the city, he goes up to the woman, he makes that statement, and then the woman has an easy childbirth, and the infant as well, and the woman becomes well. I think this was before, at least according to the sutta, before Angulimala became an arhat, but perhaps already he was a sotapanna, so he was a noble one. Okay, so now we move to the next part of the sutta, which introduces a shift in emphasis just from speech to all aspects of one's conduct, and it places the emphasis on reflecting before acting. And again, the Buddha uses an analogy to convey his point. He speaks about using a mirror. So he asks Rahula, what is the purpose of a mirror? And Rahula replies, is for the purpose of reflection. And just conveniently, in both Pali and in English, the word reflection can have two meanings.